Okay, what is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Many Mistakes Ago podcast. I feel like this shirt just emulates about what we're about to talk about. Not exactly, but in kind of a funny way, I guess, because okay, I'm gonna be real with y'all. I have been going through it with the stress, the anxiety, with like never catching a break. Um, so I am just trying to do my best to kind of follow suit with this episode and just focus on that and hone in on that because the outside world is effed up and it's just exhausting, if I'm being honest. So I really just want to like put that aside for however long it takes to record this podcast and just talk with y'all about this episode because I know there's a lot of y'all out there that probably feel this way, but like, do y'all ever feel like it is that time of year or just in your life where you cannot catch a break, that it's one thing after another, that it's like you can't get 2 minutes to yourself? That's just like the mood that I felt for like the past probably month and a half, if not more. And I just feel like it's one thing after another, and I keep telling myself that like once I move it'll be fine, everything will just kind of like dissipate, and that like my worry, like my stress and my worry levels will go down. But I'm also starting to think that that's likely not true in the same sense. So I guess the best way is to detach and to like let go of certain things, because I feel like if I don't, like I'm just gonna keep going on this constant ball of stress cycle, and I'm over it. I don't care anymore. It's the shirt. No, but seriously, let's get into today's topic. I labeled the episode Detach and Close That Door. I was originally going to name it The Art of Detachment, but I feel like the art of I've already used, and I'm just like I want to keep the names interesting. I want to keep, the theme and the flow going. So we're going to talk about detachment and closing the door. Whether it be on people, whether it be on things, whether it be on mindsets, whether it be on habits, whatever, we're going to detach and close that door. So before I start, I want to keep in mind that a detachment is not about getting... Oh my god, if I mess up, I always do. Detachment is about not getting emotionally involved regarding another person's words or behaviors when it comes to people. Basically, detachment is about not getting emotionally involved and learning to separate yourself from whatever it is. So detachment is not about not loving someone or something anymore, not caring about a person or something anymore, or moving on from things. But detachment can be a great start if that's the route you're looking to take. But it's a great start to that process, only if that's what you're looking for, of course. Or even if you're just looking to like let go of things, then this is it. Which is why I say like this is a really good podcast for me. And I know I say that a lot more often now, but it's because the topics that I come up with, I gain an interest in it, and then I do a little bit of research and listen to other podcasts and maybe read a book or a kind of like book summary of something that involves the podcast topic, and then I'm like all about it and I'm like ready to go. But sometimes it also lines up to where my life, I can just completely relate to that, which I love, because then it's like I'm actually talking about something I'm passionate about. But anyway, I just wanted to disclaimer that, because detachment is not about like letting go completely and not loving someone anymore, not caring anymore. I mean, the t-shirt's just a joke, but it is what it is. But it's really about just being able to not get emotionally involved and just kind of separate your emotions from what's going on. So it's important to let go of what is no longer good for you. And it's important to not to cling on to something or someone that isn't worth being in your life anymore. So we're going to start with people. So holding on to like someone or something that isn't meant for you can destroy you mentally, emotionally, and honestly can affect you physically too. Detachment allows you to hold your own so that the other person or thing or whatever no longer holds power over you. And not to say that it would mean the opposite, that you would hold power over it, but you would be able to hold your power over your emotions regarding the subject or the person or the thing, the place, whatever. So for example, if we're talking about people, I was in a relationship that was what I consider, after like looking back on it and really like seeing TikToks, Instagram reels, and kind of delving into learning what narcissism is, I felt like it was kind of like that narcissist like trauma bond, if you will. I believe that's what they call it. I'm not 100% like, what's the word? I don't know everything about narcissism. I tried to kind of learn from other people and understand what it is and what the signs are, so I can kind of like look out for that. So I don't know. This is just going based off of like what other people have said and what other people have kind of, you know, I've like grasped from other people essentially. So I believe one person that I follow on TikTok had called it a trauma bond, where essentially the narcissist will hold this kind of like power over you, and they'll give you like love bomb you, and then they'll kind of take it away, and then they'll love bomb you, and they'll take it away, and it's kind of like this almost back and forth kind of process. And I'm trying to like describe it the best I can. I'm probably not going to do an episode on narcissism because I have no idea where to even begin with it, and I'm not like an expert by any means. But when I was like reading and watching these little clips and educating myself a couple years ago, I think like 2 years ago at this point, I had realized like I kind of felt like I was in that kind of relationship with my ex, and I always felt like even if I was like working my ass off or, you know, doing the right things and being a good girlfriend, that like I was never doing anything right, and that when I would get upset over things that they were not doing correctly, they would either lash out or like take it personally, or like ignore it completely and like let it slide, if that makes sense. So like I remember I had begged my ex to wash the dishes, right? Something so simple, because I was working 2 jobs, and those jobs equated for me working from like, I think I left the house somewhere around like 7:30 in the morning, and my job started at 8, and then I did not get home until maybe 11 o'clock at night, maybe a little earlier. I can't remember if my job ended, it like my shift at that time, if it ended at 10 or 11, because it changed with the seasons because it's retail. But anyway, I was gone. I worked a very long day. I was exhausted. Now I did have like maybe 2 or so hours in between the two jobs to where I could go like to McDonald's and get something, or even there were times where I would have a little bit more of a gap and I would go home and I would like cook a meal and like try to clean up a little bit and then like go to my other job. So I was like go, right? I had asked him to do the dishes because they were piling up and I was exhausted and I was just like, I can't. Like, I have so much that I just can't, right? And those dishes had probably been, were they sitting there for days? I don't know if they were sitting there for days or if there was mold on them. I know that there were points in time where like the dishes did have mold and I would be so disgusted. I'll do the dishes, but once there's mold or like food particles, I want to gag. I will probably actually puke on those dishes if there's no trash can nearby. Like, it is bad. I have a sensitive stomach or something because I just can't do it. I'm weak. And I'll admit that. But I remember I was coming home after my second job, and mind you, my ex at the time did work. He didn't technically work from like 6 to 6 or whatever, but he did have a job where he did work decent hours, but it was still an 8-hour shift. It was just the driving time to and from the job that added on to it. However, the part that upset me is that he wasn't at home sleeping, because I would have been like, okay, you know what? I told him to do the dishes, but he's like tired and exhausted and he's sleeping. That I'm like, okay, I understand. Like, I'm exhausted too. Like, you know what I mean? It happens. Like, we'll get to it when we get to it, but it's just, it is what it is. But I had come home and he was actively playing video games. So me, in a hissy fit, I literally went to the dishes to go get them done because I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. Like, and I'm going to be pissed about it because, like, I asked you to do something and you're choosing to ignore something that I asked of you that you said you would do. And you're pissing me off even more by doing something that you get to do. Because now I'm jealous because I'm like, I spent all this time working 2 jobs to help us, and I cooked you a meal in between my shifts, and I didn't have the time to clean up, and I asked you if you could do it, and instead you're gonna just let them sit there and get even nastier, and now I have to deal with them after I've worked and I'm exhausted. So it was just kind of like, I would have understand if he like went to bed or like he, you know, was just exhausted and he literally could not do anything for himself, because I get to those points. But that's not what happened. What happened was he was playing video games, and now I'm pissed and in a hissy fit because I'm like, great, these need done because there's mold, there's food, it's disgusting, it's gonna attract roaches if it hasn't already. So I'm literally I straight up just start doing them, and he stops his video game. I don't know if he already finished the round or what. Mind you, this was like, oh God, 5 or 6 years ago at least. So mind you, if I don't get all of the details correct, it is what it is. But he comes into the kitchen and was like, why are you so mad? As I'm doing the dishes, I'm like, what do you mean, why am I so mad? Like, I asked you to do the dishes. And he's like, let me take over. And I'm like, I'm already like soaking wet. I've already done some of the dishes. Like, I might as well just finish it. Like, and it's just those things that like make so much of a difference in a partnership that you don't even realize that it's like, it's one thing if like you're both exhausted and you both just kind of agree to like let it sit there. But if one person is actively like doing stuff and having fun, and like the other person's working their ass off, it feels very unbalanced. So that's why I was really pissed off, because the relationship at this point felt very unbalanced, and I was not getting anything emotionally from him. I was not getting anything physically, and I didn't want anything physically because I was exhausted. I mean, little did I know I was also gay, but at the time, I was not interested in anything but like work, getting the job done, because that's how I had to go about my days. And looking back on it, I'm like, you know, he had also around this time had been cheating on me. And like I said, I was involved with work, but it went to show that our priorities were so different, and he didn't think he was doing anything wrong by cheating on me because I wasn't giving him anything. So there's that. That's another reason why I thought it was a narcissist, why I was dating a narcissist, but I digress. I guess the point that I'm trying to make, because I'm not trying to like spew garbage at y'all, but essentially I guess what I'm trying to say is like, he had so much power over making me upset, or making me feel like I was missing out on something, or making me feel like I was never doing enough because I'm the woman of the house. Like, I'm supposed to do the dishes and the cleaning and get all this stuff done, even though I have 2 jobs and am working, you know, from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. or whatever time it was. And then just to come home and like have to deal with more shit. I think I let somebody have so much power over me that I don't want that again, and I can't have that again, because it's not worth your energy, your mental health. And it's insane, because I feel like I was already well into the relationship when I had noticed little signs of, you know, these traits of like laziness and pushing me to do all the work, and you know, kind of stuff like that I was forced to break the attachment, because that was the only way that we were gonna separate. You know, like, he was cheating on me, he wasn't gonna tell me, and I think the attachment that I had to him at this time was really difficult for me, and had kind of sent me into a spiral, because I had like known this one thing for so long. But obviously with time and growth and just many realizations of all of the kind of red flags and the toxic traits and the little things in that relationship, I kind of realized like, okay, this isn't what's good for me. This is, realizing like, I need to not care so much about certain things. I need to make sure that I make better choices in my future when it comes to future partners. I need to make sure I'm choosing better partners. I need to make sure that whoever I'm in a relationship with, that they make me happy, that it's not a one-way road, so to speak. So it kind of just puts you into those like different realizations, and detachment is a skill to master, if you will, but I think it really starts with where you're at in life. So for example, if you are in a relationship and you have already built that bond and that attachment with somebody, it is going to make detachment more difficult. So if you're single, if you're, you know, getting to know people, I'm going to start with y'all, because you can kind of work off of it and like do baby steps, right? So let's say you're talking to somebody and they keep canceling on you. I think that the best way to detach is to set a boundary. And I know, we've talked about boundaries in quite a few episodes, but I'm serious. You need to set a boundary on what you can and cannot accept from somebody. And those boundaries need to be laid loud and clear as soon as you recognize or see that boundary being violated. Because what's going to happen is if you don't set that boundary, when it happens, they're going to be like, well, you let me do it before. This happened before. Why didn't you say anything? There is going to be kind of talk back about like, well, I'm confused. Customers, if you know retail, if you've worked in customer service, they do it a lot. They're like, well, the last person let me do it. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. This is how it works. But if you start from the beginning, it kind of avoids all of that crazy mess. So setting boundaries is a good way to start that detachment, because you can see where that other person lies with their respect for you. And speaking of, let's talk about investment, right? Each relationship that you have, whether you're dating somebody and being single, or you're in a relationship, or you're in a friendship, that is like a business investment, or like business like partnership, let's call it, right? So y'all are in a business partnership. Let's just pretend one person here and one person there, right? I'm giving this much. I need this person to give this much as well. If they're giving me this much, I need to recognize that. If I am giving this much and they're giving this much, I need to recognize that. And that's kind of the point. So you want to recognize what you and what the other person are investing into the relationship, emotionally, physically, mentally, what you're doing to contribute. Let's say if you live together, what you contribute to the household. If you are dating, how much energy are you putting into texting or calling the other person, and vice versa? How about meeting that person? How much energy are you putting in, and how much are you getting out? And it's not to say that, if it's not equal, it's automatically a problem. It's that if it's not consistently equal, it's a problem. Because I think I might have said this before, but some people are only capable, their max is like a 7, right? That's all they can give. If you are a person that consistently gives and needs to receive a 10, that 7 is not going to fit you. And that's why I say consistently, though, because I want to keep in mind like burnout, exhaustion, mental health issues, because there are days where I can give a 10 and there are days where all I have is a 3. I'm so sorry. Like, it is what it is. So you need to kind of recognize what you're giving, what you're receiving, because you need that to consistently match. But also understand that if it ebbs and flows with a long-term relationship, then that's normal. That's okay. But if you are like getting to know somebody and dating somebody, if they're not consistently matching that energy right away and matching that investment, you are likely not going to get that matched in the future. So that's why I'm kind of like, you need to kind of catch it in the beginning. And that's why I say when you're single, it's almost the best time, because you can catch these things and catch these patterns before you can make that decision of, I want to be with you. Obviously sometimes when you're dating someone, it just feels right, or it just doesn't feel right. Like, there are people that I've dated where I knew right away, I was like, I literally cannot. Like, I probably need to have a conversation with somebody, or if I was in a bad phase of my life, I might have ghosted them. But it happens. It happens. I'm not saying that ghosting is a good idea at all. You should probably communicate. But that's up to you. That's up to the type of person that you are. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm only going to tell you what I've gone through, what I've been through, and you can make your informed decision based on that, because I am not here to be your mom. I'm not here to be like some sort of know-it-all expert. I am here to just tell you straight as like a friend, as like someone who's been through shit. Like, here's what I've been through, but like, you still need to make your informed decision. And that's the best kind of friend, if I'm being honest. The friend that's like, I want you to know that like, this is what I see, but at the end of the day, like, you are grown enough to be your own person. But anyway, I feel like I got off track a little bit there. Let's backtrack to how easy it is to detach when you are dating but not in a committed relationship. Detachment really is about letting the emotions that kind of surface, not letting them get too far, not letting them boil over, kind of taking a little hand on that string, I don't know, pulling in your emotions. Let's just go with that. You want to reel it in. You want to make sure that the minute you catch yourself too emotionally invested in something or someone, that you reel it in and that you think logically. A lot of us, I know me personally, I'm guilty of this. We think with our emotions, or we think too emotionally about things, and that is your like doomsday, because I'm gonna tell y'all right now, like, if you think with your emotions, you are going to likely regret it. You're going to do a lot of things that are based on emotion, and you are going to regret it almost instantly. You're going to feel bad, and you're going to apologize, but you're not actually going to fix anything because you were just so emotionally gone. And that's kind of why I like this episode, because I can relate to being too emotionally invested in things and knowing that I need to like tone it down. I knocked my laptop. But knowing that I need to like tone it down, or I need to like detach from certain things, or, you know, whatever it is. Like, for example, I think we've kind of talked about relationships a little. There's a couple other things that I want to talk about. So we're going to kind of go bounce around between topics. Don't mind me. But for me, one thing I want to detach from is my own expectations of myself. And I know I went from like relationships to something so deep, but I feel like I always want to do podcasting and TikToks, and I have work, 8.5 hours in a day, and I want my vlogging to get done, and my dad wants me to get a website done and a brochure done, and I've got schoolwork, and I've got to clean the house, and I've got to do laundry, and I've got to do dishes, and I've got to feed the dogs, and I've got to take them on walks. And it's just like this never-ending list, right? And I just keep making it longer by adding more expectations of myself. And one thing I want to learn to detach from is that if I don't do it, it's not the end of the world. And I feel like I've probably talked about this before, but I just think that's a really good example, especially if someone has never watched a podcast from me before and like wants to get to know me more, or wants a real life example, because like I think that's a great example of how much we expect of ourselves. And it's crazy because a lot of people that are like older or in older generations are like, no, this generation is just lazy, they don't know how to work, they don't know how to do this or that. That's not the case. Like, I am so driven. I want to do things, but the things that I love don't make me money, and the things that make me money are miserable. So I am trying to find a balance between the two, to where the things that don't make me money maybe someday can, but I need to put an investment into that. Remember when we were talking about relationships, you got to put in an investment, and you get out what you put in. So that's why I'm like, hey, tying this all together, little. I can't even. How do you even make a bow with your hands? That was not it. I promise. I tried, but anyway. Let's see where we can backtrack to. So that is a good example of my own expectations and what I want to detach from. But let's say you want to detach from a song or an artist, right? You want to kind of detach from maybe an object or a place, things that kind of hold a memory in your mind that can be changed. I think this is a good one because this is something that I know how I've like experienced things. So a song, for example, I used to have a song that reminded me of somebody. And there are some songs that I haven't done this with and that I just can't get over. That's fine. I've even had an artist, right, that I've tried this with. I think the thing is that if you hold on to a memory of someone or whatever memory you hold on to that's bad, attached to a song, a place, an artist, an object, whatever it is, the best way to replace that memory and detach from that memory is to create a new one. So serious. Because I can tell you the last time I went to Kane Brown was with Z. Now, even though Z and I are not friends anymore, and that is not a friendship, before that was with Jeff. And I had completely forgotten about all that memory, and because I replaced it with a new one. Do I need to replace it again? Not really, because I don't hold a certain level of hate in my heart for Z. I don't think how we ended things were cool. I don't think what she did was cool. But at the end of the day, like, it's not traumatic. It's not, this, like, crippling, like, I wish I could replace this memory. Like, it's not vital that I replace it. So that's kind of like a good example of how I replaced a memory of an artist or a concert, that I went to. Which is actually funny because I actually realized that I never went to Kane Brown with her. I went to Luke Combs with her. So I guess I replaced the memory in my head because we were supposed to go, and then I ended up selling to the tickets because we weren't talking. And then we started talking again, and then we stopped. Holy shit. You know what? That's just a good example of how it should be done then. But it's crazy because my mind actually thought that we went together for a second, but then I remembered it was a completely different artist. So that's a way you could do it. Another way to replace that memory is to just maybe not talk about it with the same person, maybe like write about it in your journal or like record a voice note, but just exhaust yourself to the point of like you've talked about it so many times it's just out of your system. I know for me, podcasting actually does help like get things off of my chest. So if you ever hear me say something like multiple times about a scenario, I'm either A, trying to relate it to something that I'm talking about, or like trying to like give you guys a real life connection, or I don't know if I said one or two or A or B. Oh, that's so embarrassing. The second one is I might be just trying to get it off of my chest and let go of it. And it feels good because I remember when I was back in like a institutional rehab for mental health that one of the therapists says that like a good way to release something is to just exhaust it so many times, like talk about it so many times that it like you're done, you're like it's worn you thin, like there's nothing left to say. It's off your chest. And granted, not all scenarios are going to end up that way. There are some deep-rooted issues for certain things that you might have to work through. But for very kind of like simple things, like I think friendship fights or just like things that you're mad about or things that pissed you off, maybe someone, cut you off on the highway, like just like letting out like that emotion into like, even if it's just thin air, like will feel so much better to just like exhaust it to the point of like, okay, you're good. Again, if you're using that method, try not to have the same person be the listener because they're going to get tired of it. But you know what? If they agreed to be that person, that's on them. But a podcast, for example, I'm sorry, if you hear shit on my podcast multiple times, don't come for me. I'm trying. But there's a reason for it. It's, me trying to exhaust something, or it's me trying to relate something, or both. That was the third option, by the way. Maybe it is both. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are many ways to detach, and there are many things or people or experiences to detach from, but you have to find what fits the best. And I think when it comes to people, the best thing for detachment is practice. If you get to know them from the beginning, it's a great way to kind of like let it flow. I think the difficult part is that some people might think like, oh, detachment, does that mean like you're keeping a wall up and you're not being, intimate with someone? Maybe you're setting too many boundaries. I don't necessarily think that, because for me, I feel like detachment is the ability to do so, not necessarily that you do it. Because if there is one thing about detachment, it's that you detach when you need to, not all the time. So let's say you're building a relationship with someone and things are going great, but something happens. Maybe they cheat on you, maybe you cheat on them, maybe, I don't want to go into like they die or something, because that's like just like a horrible thought, but like something happens, right, where you can no longer be together. That is when you want to practice. That's when you want to put your detachment practice into fruition. And the best way to like think of it is that you weren't detaching throughout that whole relationship, but now you're trying to, because now you're trying to, let go of something or someone. And again, detachment is not about not caring or not loving someone. It's about not having so much emotional influence and power being held over you, that you are in control of that emotion, that you are in control of your own emotions and being able to make healthy, mentally stable decisions. And I think that the best way to kind of detach is practice from the beginning when it comes to certain people, but also I think detachment comes from maybe rationalizing things, maybe having a more calm mind. I think for me, I make the best decisions when I'm not emotionally impacted. So if I'm able to kind of like, let's say I'm in a fight with somebody, if I have that fight over like text message, I can just kind of put that text message to the side and I can think about what I want to say. I can think about how I need to respond, how I want to respond, how I might want to even just change it to in person. But also I can just think of my words and my actions and recognize that like what is going to come out of my mouth might not be the best thing. Or maybe it is. You never know. But if you're emotionally attached and you let it out emotionally and you just go for it, there is no filter. There is no guarantee that you even get the opportunity to think about it. So I guess that's kind of why I'm like, okay, it's nice to kind of take a break and come back to it when you're ready. It is nice to be able to think about your actions. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be perfect. I'm not saying that you're going to be perfect, because it doesn't exist. Sorry to say. But you can always keep trying every day. Every day that you wake up is a new chance to try everything. You just wipe the slate clean and say, today is a new day. I'm going to try my best to be happy. I'm going to try my best to smile. I'm going to try my best to be energetic. I'm going to try my best to be productive. I'm going to try my best to just be a good person, a good citizen, a good sister, daughter, girlfriend, whatever you are, right? And just wipe the slate clean and just start every day fresh. And I love that, because it just gives you every opportunity. It's almost like, if you mess up, yes, it sucks. Yes, you need to be accountable for it, but you're not going to let it hinder your progress. And that's like the number one. I feel like I hate when I see people get knocked down for something, and get knocked down for like the things that they did wrong or said wrong or whatever, and then they just completely give up, because they're like, well, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to change. I'm never going to be able to, master this or that or whatever. Detachment, you don't need to master it. You don't. It is literally everything in life is a never ending cycle of just learning and growing and constantly, checking in with yourself. So make sure that you are just constantly checking in with yourself, that you are constantly kind of saying, do I have a hold over myself and over my emotions? Because that is where it's at. It is not an art that you need to master. I promise you. But you are more than welcome to use little tips and examples from this podcast to make it your own. Maybe I inspired you to think of a different way to detach. Maybe you learned to take control of your emotions by listening to a song before you respond to somebody. Maybe you need a 5-minute break. Maybe you need an hour to replay the scenario in your head and think it over before you talk to somebody. Whatever it is, you've got this, and you can use whatever it is that is best for you. And if somebody does not respect it, they do not respect you. Because I think a lot of people don't ask for much within reason. Like, you do not have to respond to somebody in 0.5 seconds. I'm sorry, you don't. Like, we are human beings going through a lot of shit. You do not have to do any of that. You see a text come in and you are mentally exhausted, you don't have to respond to it right away. If you're working, if you're on a phone call, if you're, doing something else, if you're doing your homework, you don't have to be available 24/7. Like, I hate that idea, because it is exhausting to show up 24/7 for everyone and everything. You don't have to show up for everyone and everything 24/7. Because I promise you, if you are showing up for everyone and everything, whether yourself is included or not, 24/7, you are going to get burnt out. So set that boundary, first of all. But second of all, learn how to prioritize what you love and what you want to do. And also, number 3, learn how to control your emotions and detach from scenarios so that you can get a clearer picture. Because if you're able to kind of see the bigger picture, that you're not emotionally invested, and you see, like, I can't even make a good square. Here. You see this much of a picture, tunnel vision, when you have emotions involved. But if you take a step back, you can see a bigger picture, right? We all get the point of that. You want to be able to do that. And that's what detachment allows, is you to kind of step back for you to observe, for you to see things with a clear mind, for you to see it from a different perspective, from a non-emotional perspective. And I think that's one of the greatest things, because there are many ways that you can detach, and I'm sure you will find your own. And maybe one day I'll come up with a list of ways to detach, but this is your motivation to think about what you're attached to, who you're attached to, and your ability to detach. Because I have had some harsh awakenings where I was unable to detach from a person because my heart is just like so like set on them, and just like grabbed, like I attached to that person, and I'm like, please, 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 like, don't let me go. You need to be able to like own your shit, honey. Like, F that. You are your own person. You don't need to be begging anyone for anything, unless it's Sabrina Carpenter begging you not to embarrass her. But anyway, I thought that was a little funny. I don't know why I thought that was funny, but whatever. But seriously, take a little mental note of like who you're attached to, what you're attached to, and if you're able to detach. I know for me, I'm going to be taking a mental checklist of like the things I can detach from, and my own expectations. I'm starting with that one, honey, because I feel like I need to work on like recognizing that like I have so much that I pile on myself that it feels like everything I do is just a check off of a to-do list. It really is. I mean, some things make me happy and fun and whatever, but I don't want my life to be a constantly like never ending to-do list. That's not fun to me. And I don't think life should be a never-ending to-do list. I mean, it is, but it shouldn't feel that way. So, with that being said, I have talked y'all's ears off once again. Thank you so much for letting me talk y'all's ears off. I hope you have learned something, and again, maybe I have made some room on ways to detach. But for now, I want you to think about what detachment means to you, who and what you're too attached to, and how you can maybe step back and look at that bigger picture and learn how to detach. I've given a couple examples, but I kind of want to create a list now. I feel like I love lists, and there is an episode of lists, so maybe I'll put a list of how to detach in there. I like that. I'm going to do that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching Many Mistakes Ago. I love you guys so much. And I will see you guys next week.